I'm Steve Lascalzo, and This Is the Way. Thank you for joining me for a special edition of This Is the Way podcast. This is the way we watch the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer released on Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. The movie is still in post-production and just over 3 months away from release. It's a 2-minute, 12-second trailer available on X, YouTube, and also embedded directly on the StarWars.com website. This trailer starts off with a visual homage to Apocalypse Now. There are X-Wings flying in. There's a sunset behind them. It's a visually iconic scene, an homage to Apocalypse Now, but people who haven't seen the movie don't realize the horror that the choppers are about to visit on innocents in that movie. You know, in the trailer, it's just X-Wings. It's not choppers about to rain death upon innocents to Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. Instead, it's John Williams' main title theme here from Star Wars, and it's upbeat and inspiring, whereas in Apocalypse Now, that's a scene of horrors visited. I just don't understand. I don't know why. I know why the scene is so iconic because it's a striking image, but I don't know if that's the tone. The tone does not match, you know. But that's okay. Again, it's just a visual homage to that scene because it is so beautiful and iconic. Even though what those choppers are going to do in the other movie is horror, right? I don't think we're not saying the rebels and the X-Wings are committing atrocities. Let's get back to the trailer. There's a shot of a ship landing, and there's a red and white R2 series astromech droid rolling in and beeping into the shot. And then we see the Mandalorian pushing buttons in the cockpit, but he's joined by his sidekick here. It's a setup for the first lighthearted moment of this trailer. It's a callback to season 1 of The Mandalorian, where Grogu, only known as the child at that point, he can't help but touch those buttons.
Hey, never touch the buttons.
I happen to like stuff like this. This is the kind of thing that's relatable to even the most casual of fans. It's cute and not intrusive. It's a reference to something it set up earlier in the series run. So it's not like Can You Hear Me Now scene from Last Jedi. It's not over-the-top humor that brings you out of the property. It's something light and quick that we've already seen in that show in The Mandalorian Season 1, so we can move on from that. We can just say, oh yeah, that's cute. And like I said, it's relatable to a human being with a child who likes to push a lot of buttons. It's relatable, it's funny, it's quick, and we can move on. The new Razor Crest is taking off with the new yellow paint scheme. I'm sure that's to sell more toys. And then we get a Lucasfilm Limited logo. And we join Djarin as he walks up to a food truck with a 4-armed monkey-like animal as the chef. This is an Ardennian. It's a character that we've seen already in Solo, a Star Wars story. And it seems like the Aurebesh says this is Hugo's best sellers. And this food truck seems to confirm the early speculation. This is Martin Scorsese voicing this alien. Scorsese directed the movie Hugo in 2011. And again, this is the same species as Rio Durant, the alien pilot that Jon Favreau voiced in a Star Wars story. So I think that's already been confirmed that Scorsese is the voice of this alien.
Whoa, for this price, I'll tell you whatever you want.
I mean, it sure sounds like him, doesn't it? And from there, we get some voiceover from Djarin saying gangsters and war criminals, and then there's a shot of a Hutt vault, and then a boardroom on an ice planet with what seems to be corrupt politicians gathered around a warlord. We saw, Orson Krennic leading a boardroom scene in Andor's second season. I don't recognize any of the people from this boardroom scene as having been in season 3 of The Mandalorian. So, Moff Gideon is definitely not in attendance. He's not running the meeting. And I couldn't recognize any of the other faces that might have been in hologram form in season 3. I think it's more likely that these are senators from the New Republic, corrupt senators who maybe were sympathetic to the Empire. Then it seems like the head of the table is the one to say the line,
"Long live the Empire."
And Din Djarin gets handed a card by Sigourney Weaver's Colonel Ward. It looks like a sabacc card, and it's fitting since she seems to be wanting to ward off a war that we know is brewing in the Prime Galaxy because of the events of Ahsoka Season 1, and Season 2 is airing later this year, by the way. She's using this tactic that seems to be pulled from real world, the Gulf War. They put out playing cards featuring Iraq's most wanted military figures, including Saddam Hussein and some of his top generals. So that seems to be what the Mandalorian is referring to when he says something about Colonel Ward's bad guy deck of cards. Then we get a look at some snowtroopers with a new mask style. I mean, it kind of looks like either a Joker or maybe there's some dark marks on the face. Instead of the old snowtroopers usually just have a white cowl over their face, but now it seems to be like there's some black, almost like they were kind of doing an homage to Vader or something like that. It's interesting. If you slow down the footage, you can see their faces look differently. And the Mandalorian dispatches them with the flamethrower and a blaster. It's a nice action sequence. I'm guessing here it's acted out by Brendan Wayne in the suit. Then there's a shot of U-Wing landing, and I think that's a Delphi base, and I think that matches the color correction that we see in an earlier scene with the R2 unit and the ship landing after that Apocalypse Now homage. Then there's a voiceover cutting before the scene cuts to Ward at the base in a booth, and she continues, and Mando and Grogu are there, and we've seen part of this in the teaser trailer. She says his mission isn't about revenge, but we can see Grogu force pulling the snack bowl toward him in this same shot. We don't hear her say anything in the teaser trailer, but now this seems to be part of that same shot. And then it cuts to Grogu instead using the Force to levitate and then crush what looks like a modified mouse droid on the snowy planet. So he crushes this, similar to what we saw Master Luke Skywalker do to Dark Troopers. And remember, he saw him do this on the view screen at the close of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Ward continues with a line about preventing another war, and that's where the rebels went wrong with their post-Imperial New Republic. They're so afraid of more violence after toppling the Empire. They don't want to continue to fight to maintain peace, which is what they should be doing. So they're outsourcing it. They're outsourcing the violence to bounty hunters instead of admitting the Empire is still lurking. We see a shot of soldiers scrambling and ships take off from underground hangars on a jungle world. It's almost definitely not Yavin 4. I don't think it's Takodana either. I think I have an answer to what this planet might be later in this podcast episode.
Strap in.
The Razor Crest is brought into hyperspace. We see what I believe is the character Embo, based on leaks and rumors. He is a Cayuzo species, and he's approaching what I believe is the Navarro home of Grogu and Din Djarin in a rainstorm. It's my belief this is the opening of the movie, and I think this move on him is what spurs Din Djarin into action. I think Embo is being sent to get him and Grogu, and I think they stop Embo, but Din Djarin will then travel to visit the Hutts to see why he's being targeted. It seems clear to me that the next shots of Din Djarin unmasked by the Hutts and the ones with Embo and his dog are not the same. They don't match. Based on the earlier shown scene where he asks the food truck owner for information on the Hutts, I also don't think Embo is the one to bring him to the Hutts. And I don't think he's the one taking off his helmet either. I think that's a guard droid of some kind. I think based on the teaser trailer action footage outside of the vault, there was a little battle, and I think he was fighting the large guard droids in that teaser trailer. I don't think the Hutts are going to survive. This is also confirmation that we will see Pedro Pascal's face at least this one time in the movie, and I wonder if that means he's going to need to go back to take a dip in the pools under Mandalore to atone. There's a slate shown of the date of the movie release, then some voiceover of Din Djarin basically advising Grogu, hey, suit up, which he does. He puts on a circular breastplate with the family clan sigil of the Mudhorn, and then he also puts on a wrist device of some sort. And we see there's going to be an aerial dogfight because we get a quick shot of, it looks like laser ports or guns on some kind of a ship. And then goes to a quick shot of Grogu riding with some Anzellans that we have seen previously in another trailer. And then Grogu with a Yoda-like staff. And he's peacefully meditating on a root or branch or tree trunk. And it looks like a jungle, like a Dagobah-esque setting, like a swampy woodland jungle area. And there's a voiceover where Din Djarin admits, Grogu's going to live for centuries and he's going to outlive me. And so I've got to prepare him for the future. And then he lifts him out of some water. Grogu was swimming in this, and I believe that we saw him doing this in the teaser trailer. And then we see a shot of Rada the Hutt's arena, where it does appear Mando is going to face off in gladiatorial combat against him, not just the Dejarik aliens, but against Rada too. Rada is reportedly voiced by Jeremy Allen White, and we do not hear him speak at all in this trailer.
Are you scared? You should be.
That was not Rada. That is an alien I can't seem to figure out. He seems to be advising Grogu on that same jungle planet we saw Grogu meditating on a tree earlier in the trailer. And I say he's advising him because he kind of paraphrases Yoda here.
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
Then we see Din Djarin helmetless again. But I think this is part of the same group of scenes that we saw earlier with him with the Hutts. He's in waist-deep water, and I don't believe that this is a mythosaur based on the fact that we saw one of those on Mandalore in Season 3. I think this is for the Asia audiences. This is a very worm-like dragon creature, this white dragon-looking creature that we see here. And it seems to be soon after that visit with the Hutts. I mean, I think he's in an underground cavern, and I think Grogu and the Anzellan are on their way to save him, perhaps. Maybe he went through a trapdoor in the Hutt vault or outside it, and that leads to this white dragon-like serpent, kind of an homage to Return of the Jedi, where Luke goes down the Hutt trapdoor. Maybe that's what this is. It's an homage, and he went down a trapdoor and is stuck down here with this beast. Voiceover then kicks in, and Din Djarin asks Grogu, should we run or stand and fight? And it's over a scene of everyone's favorite Lasat, Garazeb Aurelios. First seen and heard in the animated Rebels show, and then in live action during Season 3. And I think we saw this in the teaser trailer as well. He's back here. He's fighting stormtroopers. And in fact, it appears he gets a hallway scene because there's a lot of bodies in the background. So this is setting up to be another Star Wars legendary hallway scenes, but this one's going to Zeb. And then we see Grogu extending his hand in a show of the Force. We see a skiff full of troopers crash, and I don't think these scenes are related either, but surely Grogu is going to do a lot of, magic hand thingies in this movie.
I like this kid.
There's a shot of Mando sliding and shooting after it seems he decapitated what seems to be one of those droid guards in the Hutt tunnels. And then there's an explosion at the base that we saw earlier. It's a ship crashing into Hutt-styled construction. There's no desert here, but it's jungle. And the scrambling guards outside the underground hangar bays that we saw early in the trailer mean that these guards are all part of the same planet, I think, and part of the same group. And I think since we see these same guards on the jungle planet, in the tunnels, and with the Hutts, I don't think we're on the civilized planet-wide casino world. I think this is the jungle world that the same planet is that the Hutts were hiding on or had a base on in the animated Clone Wars series. This could be Nal Hutta. The next scene is a doorway with the sign in Aurebesh that reads, Weathers Apollo. That's a clear reference to Carl Weathers after his passing, because he played Apollo Creed, and Carl Weathers is his name. So he's passed away, and this seems to also be a confirmation that there's an in-world retirement of the character of Greef Karga. Maybe we hear early in the movie that Embo dispatched him first before heading to Din Djarin and Grogu. I don't know. But it's a wonderful little tribute just to sneak into the, not just the movie, but we know it's going to be there because of the trailer. And the door we see in the trailer is ripped open by a character that we mentioned from the board game Dejarik in either previous news updates or the previous trailer review and discussion. It's the Dejarik is the holo chess game played in A New Hope, but here we see the real Star Wars character that is life-sized, and it appears to be on a rampage. Maybe Din Djarin made it angry. That character scares a Rodian baby and a pram, and the mother, and I'm almost positive that this mother is played by Dawn Denninger, based on her frequency playing such a character in The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett. And so I think that's Dawn Denninger in costume there as the Rodian mother taking the baby out of the pram. But she leaves the pram. Why not just move the pram? But she takes the baby out, and that's because, you guessed it, Baby Yoda has his buggy back.
What are you waiting for?
How awesome is that? He gets an upgraded version of the pram that we saw him in during Season 1 and early in Season 2. They race off into the streets, avoiding the angry Dejarik famous aliens, and then we get a title slate once again, and then there's the tag. Grogu must have really liked those blue macarons, because, he got those, and he snacked on them in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, when they went back to Navarro and found that base on Navarro with the stormtroopers. Well, he's got more of those blue macarons on Navarro again, and Daddy Din Djarin takes away his snackies, and he gives him a message that parents everywhere can relate to.
Let's save the rest for after dinner.
And that's it. That's how the trailer ends. 2 minutes, 12 seconds again. The film is still not rated at this point, but the date is revealed as May 22nd, confirmed. I couldn't find a link to tickets yet near me. Fandango, Atom, AMC, they all had ways to get a notification when the tickets become available, but no place to buy the tickets yet. And listen, I liked this trailer. I liked it a lot better than the big game ad after the disappointment with the brevity of that big game commercial. This one seems, why wasn't this available online during the Super Bowl? The commercial should have pointed to it then. Maybe it wasn't ready, but I mean, we're talking a week and a day. Also, that beer commercial-like ad was commissioned, and I don't think it was AI generated in a hurry. They didn't have anything that said, "Oh, go online to see the trailer," and then the trailer's not there yet or anything. Maybe they wanted to point to it, but maybe they didn't have the main trailer finished. But again, doesn't seem to be planned that way. This does feel more like a finished product, something that could still have been put together in a week's time. So this could be course correction by the marketing department. And we didn't get to see the trailer that we saw at Celebration. There was a scene there that they could have included in this full trailer, but I saw a leak of that, and it was better than both the first teaser and the fight footage in the AT-AT looked great. And maybe you tack that on to the end of the big game commercial or something. I don't know. But what we got in the full trailer was definitely good and in the right direction. It definitely excites me more than the beer commercial thing. That was lighthearted and fun. I didn't really have a big problem with it. It's just, I think it's, again, lead us to online. Go and see the full trailer online now. That would have been a great way to do it.
Okay, then.
Okay, boy, I talked a lot more than I thought I was going to. It's only a 2 minute, 12-second trailer. But if you think I missed something in the trailer, I know I skipped over a lot of stuff there. I didn't translate all the Orabesh. Grok wasn't too helpful in that. I had to do all the translating by myself. This is before any of the other mainstream sites have analyzed and had, they have teams full of people doing that, slowing down things, going through slow-mo. but I think it did a pretty good job, and I got out of it what I really wanted to focus on. I don't think any of my research has said what that alien is that's talking to Grogu. I can't figure out what it is. I went through the Wikipedia trying to compare that alien. He kind of looks like the one from Monsters, Inc., Randy Boggs. Randy Boggs, maybe that's the same, not the same character, but maybe it is an homage to that. He kind of looks like, it doesn't exactly sound like Steve Buscemi, but it kind of looks like that. Not purple, but green. I don't know. That's what it reminds me of, okay? So give me your thoughts. Do you think I missed this? Do you want to participate? Do you want to tear me a new one? Come in with a comment about Star Wars. Anything. The trailer, this channel, send me an email. thisisthewaypodcast@gmail.com. We have Star Wars news updates monthly. Earlier this month, we had a Star Wars Podcast Day episode. Sometimes we do these special episodes. We have a May the 4th episode that we do every year. Come be a part of this community. I lost a lot of listeners and viewers because of, I suspect because I am not afraid to speak my mind about Star Wars, and, a lot of the people who used to interact have fallen away. Either they're just not interested in Star Wars anymore at all. Even my own friends, they like Star Wars, but not enough to listen to podcasts, even my podcasts about it. And you can still interact with us, X, Facebook, Instagram, all at This Is The Way Pod. I started a small Discord server for the podcast, thinking maybe I could interact with some of the other communities, but I'm not really in agreement with their politics either, so I haven't used that very much. But I have started, since September, I believe, I've started doing a Bible verse for each episode as a way to, speak what's to my heart, and then expose people to real biblical teaching that coincides with Star Wars. I don't want to just put in a Bible verse and not mention Star Wars. For example, today, the verse is Genesis 2:17. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die. Now there's something to be said about listening to your master, isn't there? Anakin listens to the wrong one. He goes seeking knowledge. You can't learn from a Jedi, not from a Jedi. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve listen to the serpent, who questions whether they have been focused on their master's teaching. And all he really says is, did God really say that? And they don't answer him. But clearly they haven't been thinking about obeying. They're just thinking about, can we really trust God? And of course, who could they trust more than their creator? God tells them in Genesis 2:17 not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Trust me, he's saying, but they don't do that. It's not because he doesn't want them to know things. It's because he probably realizes they can't handle the truth, to borrow another movie's catchphrase. So Adam and Eve seek out dark knowledge, and they must pay for that transgression. But God doesn't even abandon them. He's still around, even after they're cast out, as told later in Genesis, but his presence slowly fades from the hearts and minds of his creation because of their growing sin. Likewise, the call to the light side is strongest in the most pure of Jedi, which is why I've had troubles in the past with the characterization of Luke among other Jedi. The dark side, definitely, it's said it clouds their minds and their judgment, just like sin does. It's how Satan operates, and it was how Palpatine was allowed to rise to power. It's a story as old as time itself, if you believe the Bible, which I do.
Very well.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way. This is the way. This is the way.
Thank you so much for joining me for this special edition of This Is The Way podcast regarding the trailer released on February 17th, 2026 for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie in theaters May 22nd of this year. I'm your host, Steve Lascalzo, and may the Force be with you always.